Okay, so the topic that we are going to discuss today is called as cursor. Okay, uh, by any chance, are you aware of the concept of cursor?
No.
Fine. So let us understand first why do we need cursors? See, irrespective of any databases, cursors are always needed. Okay, so you may take Oracle, you may take SQL Server, or any other databases. There are always cursors. They
Mhm.
the syntaxes or behavior is from here there will be a few changes, but the concept and requirement remains the same. Now,
Mhm.
let's even if you are using Word document, right?
Mhm.
So uh, in a Word document, we also use cursor, isn't it? So what
Mhm.
is that cursor called as?
Normal cursor.
Means what?
Cursor means where the control is.
Right. That black line, it is blinking all the time. That is nothing but a cursor, right?
Mhm.
Now, is it necessary that the particular cursor, it has to be on the first page all the time? No. A
Mhm.
Word document, it may be consisting of 100 pages, and
Mhm.
my cursor may be on 65th page,
Mhm.
right? So that 65th page currently is my working area,
Mhm.
isn't it? That is the concept of cursor in Word document. On the similar grounds, we use cursors here in a database. So right now I'm not talking about any specific database. I'm talking about in general the concept of cursor. Okay. So if you have noticed, let's say I declare a variable v1, okay, which is of integer type, and then I say select at the rate v1 equal to sal from emp,
Mhm.
right? And then I execute these two. Print at the rate of v1. So what is it giving me? I declared a variable v1 and then I assigned the salary to this variable v1 and then now I'm printing v1. So
Mhm.
I'm getting what? I'm getting only one value, that is 1300. So what is this 1300? Let us check. I'm saying first of all, I'm opening another session and I want to check. So I'll say select star from EMP. What is 1300? Whose salary is 1300? Can you check the last row? This one, right?
Mhm.
So when I was saying that select salary into V1 from employee. What it did is it scrolled. It scrolled it started from first row and it kept on fetching salaries of each and every employee. That means it kept on scrolling through entire records and it stopped at the last record, and the last record's salary was given and stored ultimately, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is happening in this case is I at the rate b1 is what type of variable? It is a scalar type of variable, right? That means it can hold only one value at a time. So
Mm-hmm.
at a time, it is holding only one value. It scrolls through all the records and it settles down at the last record, and it can give only last record's value,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then my requirement is I want to store or I want to process every employee's salary which is stored in V1, right? So for that, what I need to do? The only solution is cursors. Is it fine?
Mm-hmm.
So how my cursor is going to help me is, like we declare variables, now we are also going to declare cursors. Now these cursors, what they hold, till now we have declared variables, right? And what are these variables doing? These variables till now they are holding values of one column. I may declare another variable called as B2, which may hold ename, right? So we have been declaring variables to hold values of different columns. Now we are going to declare cursors. And what are cursors going to hold? Cursors are going to hold something called as active set. Now what is this active set? That is nothing but set of rows, or what we call it as records. Okay, so a cursor is going to hold something called as active set. And what is it? It is nothing but a set of records. Fine. So it knows that select star from EMP is going to execute giving 14 rows. So it knows how many rows the current query is going to affect.
Mm-hmm.
Once it knows that, then it is going to fetch one by one all the values and give it to you. So now you are not going to get the last value, but you are going to get all the salaries one by one, right? Are you getting the advantage of using a cursor?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you want to process a set of records row by row to get individual values, you should use cursors. Now, let us go through this document. Sometimes uh, you want to process rows in a specific order. For example, when I type like this, select ename or salary and commission from employee. Okay. So what happens is, by default, a cursor is working. We don't know that the cursor is there. It's working in the background. Okay. So by default, a cursor is working and it is giving me all the set of records, right? But what if I want to be specific about fetching? I don't want to fetch all the rows. Do I have control over this query? No, but I want to have control over the execution of this query. And that is the need of using a cursor. Okay. For example, from this given set of records, as you can see here, from this given set of record, if somebody tells me that I want to extract only fifth record from this set, is there any way by writing this select statement? No, isn't it? When I'm writing this select statement, I can, the only possibility that I have is I get all the rows, but I want only fifth record. For that, I need to use cursors. Okay, so whenever the fifth row is fetched, then display, otherwise do not display the rest of the rows, because the cursor is going to fetch rows one by one and going to display it to you. So it will not display a single row till the row count becomes 5. The moment a row count becomes 5, it is going to fetch that record and show it to you. So Martin is the fifth person. So if you want, let's say I want to list the fifth employee in the company. Okay. Or let's say my requirement is I want to insert a few records. Okay. Let's say there is an insert process going on and I want to insert a few records into let's say employee table, which are coming from other table. Now when I'm inserting such kind of rows, by default all the rows get inserted, right? If there are 100 tables in some kind of source table, let's say uh, EMP. From EMP, I want to insert records into EMP history. If there are 100 records in EMP table, all 100 will get inserted in EMP history. But I don't want to do that. My by default, all of them will get inserted. But my requirement is I want to insert only 40 records into into EMP history table. So out of 100, I want to stop after 40th record get inserted, isn't it? So
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you are getting my point. We are actually getting a chance to go into the factory where the records are getting processed row by row.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can see that, okay, right now 40th record is getting inserted. So now let us stop the insertion at this point, which otherwise would not have been possible. Because after all the insertions are done, then only the control will come back. Is it fine?
Mm-hmm.
Or suppose there are many records like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I want to display all of them, I would simply say select star from EMP. But then I want to go to the first record, check the salary. If it is greater than 200, then only display it, otherwise don't display. So To do this activity, it has to individually scroll through each record and then check it according to the salary and then decide whether to display it or not. So what is going to happen is it is not going to display all the records. It is only going to display those records whose salaries are greater than equal to 200, right? So in this case, we use cursors. So we start the cursor, we individually visit each and every record, and then conditionally we decide to whether to display it or not display. So in such scenarios, when you want to process multiple records row by row, or when you want to conditionally display or deal with records, then you should use cursors. Any doubt?
No.
Should we go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. So they allow positioning at specific rows of the result set. Like I have told you, I want to display 100th row. I don't want first 99 rows. Okay. Or I want to take my pointer to, let's say, 77th row. So I would use cursor for it. Retrieving one row or block of rows from current position in the result set. I want to support data modification to the rows at the current position. So cursors are not only used for selection, but they are also used for modification, that is insert, update and delete. Providing transact SQL statements, script, procedures or triggers access to data in a result step. So we use these cursors in programs like procedures, triggers, functions, etc. to process rows row by row. Okay. Please imagine how a cursor works like. I'm going to give you one example. How to create a cursor. Okay. So there are a few steps that we need to perform. That there is something called as cursor name. How to use a cursor? First of all, we need to declare a cursor. Okay. So first we will declare a cursor. For declaring a cursor, we should give some definition. That means this cursor is going to hold what type of data. That is what kind of records. So the select statement is a normal select statement which defines that cursors. Okay. Then we open the cursor. That is the second step. The next step is fetching the cursor, fetching rows from the cursor. Fourth step is closing the cursor, and the last step is deallocating the cursor. Deallocating the cursor. So, what are these steps? What happens with each step, or what is the uniqueness of every step? That we will first, check. Now, first of all, we need to declare a cursor. So, declaring a cursor is like identifying the active set. I have told you what is active set, right? That means I'm saying declare cursor C1 for select name and salary from employee where job is equal to clerk. So suppose there are four rows for job clerk. All of them will be identified for cursor C1. So now C1 knows something. What does it know? That there are four rows of job clerk in employee table. See, please remember it has not executed or it has not fetched the rows yet. It only knows what are the rows. That is called as active set, right? It has not used it. Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
So what you can think of active set is You can think of active set, or you can think of it as box, a box with number of sticks in it. Okay, a closed box with a few sticks inside it. So what are these sticks? Each sticks represent one row. Okay, now the sticks are not used. That means they are not fetched, right? But I know how many sticks are needed. That is nothing but the active set. Okay, now once the box is ready, I am now going to use it. That means I am going to open the cursor. When I'm saying that open cursor, let's say I'm opening the lid of the box. So what happens when I say open cursor? See, for execution of every query, some memory is required, right? So when I say open cursor, a memory is allocated for the execution. Does that mean I have started fetching all the sticks from the box? No. I have just opened the lid of the box and now the pointer is pointing to the first row or to the first stick. Fine. That means the memory is allocated for execution of the code. And now the rows are ready to get fetched. The third step is fetching the rows. That means now we are going to pull out the sticks from the box. But how we are going to pull out? We are going to pull them out one by one. So the first time we pull out the first stick, after every stick fetched from the box, we check that are there any more rows to be fetched or not. Getting my point? So every time we pull out a stick from the box, every time we check, are there any more sticks in the box? This activity will continue till all the rows are fetched. That means till all the sticks are pulled from the box. Once all the sticks are taken out from the box one by one, then it's time to close the cursor. That is, to close the lid of the box. Once the cursor is closed, it is not accessible. After closing the cursor, I cannot, fetch rows from it anymore. After closing the cursor, the last step is deallocating the cursor. What is this deallocation? Deallocation means the memory allocated for that particular query, for execution of the query, is released. That is called as deallocation. Is it fine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in this fashion, we are going to now write cursors. See, to understand the concept of cursor is more important. That is why I would not say wasted, but we invested so much of time in what is cursor. Okay, because its entire thing is like imaginary. You do not see the cursor anywhere. So you should first understand need of cursor and how it works. So I uh, prefer to give so much of time to cursors as concept. Syntax is, that is irrelevant. So we declare the cursor by mentioning the statement and we come to know the active state. Then we declare variables. So whatever data cursor is given to me, that needs to be stored in a variable. So we will declare a variable to hold the data. And opening the cursor will allocate a memory for the execution of that query. Now the next step is fetching rows. See, now this is a SQL Server thing, that there are different types of cursors. They are called as forward cursors, backward cursors, scrollable cursors. Means you can fetch rows in forward fashion or you can fetch rows in backward fashion. So it was first introduced by SQL Server. Probably now Oracle also is adapting it. So how you can fetch rows one by one? You can fetch the first row, you can fetch directly the last row, or you can fetch the prior row, or you can fetch the next available row. So you can traverse through the active set the way you want. So you have the control over execution of the query now, right? After repeat the fetch the process till the last row is getting fetched. So keep on fetching in a particular sequence till the last row is fetched. Now we are going to use a loop here to fetch all the rows. Let's see how we can do it. Closing a cursor will be denying the access to the cursor anymore, and deallocating is releasing a memory of the cursor. Now there is a keyword called as scroll. Okay, so what we are talking about right now is something called as scrollable cursor. Okay, so scroll is an attribute of a cursor. So when I type scroll, the behavior of the cursor changes. How it changes is, it means that the fetch operation such as absolute, next, prior, first, last, relative are available. So when I'm saying scroll, all these prior, list, last, first, etc. are available. So if you want to fetch records from the cursor in a specific way, like I want to fetch directly the last row, or I want to fetch a prior row related to the last row, in such a way, if you want to fetch the data or records, then these attributes, they are available only if you mention scroll in the definition. Okay, otherwise these attributes will not be available. If you do not mention scroll, if you do not mention scroll, then the cursor will become forward only. That is the default one. The cursor will become forward only. Means what? I can only go in next manner. I cannot go previous or jump to a particular record. Right? So forward only cursors will only take you to the next row and keep on going to the next row. But otherwise, if you want to use the other attributes, then you explicitly have to mention scroll. Fine. So now let us write our first cursor. I have declared a cursor. Like we give name to variables, we also give name to the cursors. Okay. So declare C1. We have to specify C1 is what? C1 is not a variable, right? How do we declare variable?
We tell its data type and say int int a, and so declaration is telling its data type.
No, I mean to say syntax of variable. How do we declare a variable in SQL Server?
I can't say formally, not confident.
So far we have declared variables, right? We say @v. This is how we declare variable, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is a formal variable declaration and which is different from cursor declaration.
Mm.
Okay. So I have declared, there is no here. Declare C1. You have to mention that it is going to be a cursor. So cursor is a keyword. And I want to move the cursor in forward, backward, absolute directions. That is why I have used a keyword called as scroll. And the definition of my cursor is I want to display all the columns. So for is a keyword. Select declare cursor name for, and this is going to be my active set. All the records of employee table. Fine. So I have declared the cursor here. Now what is the next step after declaration? Hello.
Mm-hmm. Can't say.
We just discussed, right? What is the step after declaration? Declaring the cursor.
So
Once we declare cursor, what do we do?
fetch, open, fetch, close, deallocate. Okay. So we open.
So, right. That means we allocate memory for the execution of this query. Right. So here we are going to execute and fetch. So now I'm going to open the cursor and then fetch is a keyword to fetch a record from the active set. So I'm saying absolute 1 from C1. Okay. So let
Mm.
us execute this batch. 112. It is giving me 112. So what is 112? Select EMPN. If I execute this query normally, select EMP. From EMP. Okay. Salary 200. Anybody who's earning salary 200. I may be working in some other database. I'm just checking it. Okay, now I'll say absolute 4 and -1. Now I have already declared a cursor. The cursor is open. Okay, and I have declared a cursor. I have opened a cursor and I have fetched one row. Now I am going to fetch two more rows, absolute 4 and absolute -1. Now what will happen if I execute this entire patch all over again? Okay, this is very important. Please check how cursor or how SQL Server behaves. I'm going to now press execute button and see what happens. It says a cursor with name C1 already exists. That means this job of declaring an open has done already. If you are trying to open a cursor which is already open, it is going to throw error. So you will have to handle this exception in that case by using exception handling program, right? But then now the cursor is already open. I need to only fetch whatever number of rows I want. So what I'm going to do is I am now going to only execute these two lines because I have see the life of a cursor is in the entire session. So if you do not close the cursor, it will be active throughout the session till it is closed. Fine. And that is why it is advisable that whenever you are done with the cursor, please close and deallocate the cursor because it is not going to on its own close it. So there may be errors occurring due to the cursor already open. See, right now it is only 4 lines of code. But generally you have like, let's say I have 10,000 lines of code. On 123rd line, I have opened the cursor and fetched rows. And on 5000th line, I need that cursor all over again. So I try to open it again and write the same code. And then I come across error. That cursor is already open or whatever. So whenever your job is done, close the cursor. Later on, whenever you want, you can open it again. Okay. So I'm going to execute now. Absolute 4 and -1. -1 is about the last record that is talking about. Okay, so after reaching the last record, it is giving me -1. And word's record is which? This one. This one is the word record. Okay, so this is how you can choose a specific record by fetching the values. Now forward only cursors. That means the cursors which only goes next. They cannot come back or they cannot move in a particular direction, backwards or forwards both. They can only fetch rows one by one going forward. Okay, so forward underscore only, it is the feature. It is the default feature. That means if you don't mention, it is forward only. So I'm going to now, first of all, I'm going to close. How to close a cursor? Close C1 and then I'm going to say deallocate. Deallocate C1 so that the cursor will be not accessible and then it will be closed or released from the memory, right? So execute. Fine. Now we are going to see something called as forward only cursors. The first we discussed about right now is scrollable cursors, and now we are going to see forward only cursors, right? So how do we use it is like this. I'm going to comment this prior part right now. We declare a cursor, but when we are declaring it, we explicitly mention it as forward only for this query, and then I'm going to open a cursor and I'm going to say fetch next. So only next is the attribute which is available in case of forward only. Prior, absolute, etc. These other attributes are not applicable to forward only cursors. So when I execute this much part, Smith. So see, it is giving you the first record. Now what will happen if I execute this one more time? Can you tell me?
Can't say.
I'm saying fetch. So what does a fetch do? Fetch from cursor name. What does it do?
Just finds out where is the cursor.
No. Fetch. We talked about it. How it fetches rows through the cursor.
By using fetch.
If I execute this one more time, it is the cursor pointer is going to go to the next row. So currently it is showing you the first record. If I execute this one more time, it is going to go to the next record, that is Alan. If you see, it was first showing me this record. Now the cursor is going and it is showing me Alan. One more time, if I say next, it is going to go forward and show me the record of Ward. So if I execute this fetch statement one more time, it is going to go forward and show you the record of Ward. Okay, so this cursor C1, with the help of cursor C1, we are individually visiting each and every record one by one and processing it. So this activity will be performed when it scrolls through all the records one by one. Okay, King, Turner, Adams, James, Ford, Miller is the last record. So when I execute it one more time after Miller, then what will happen? It has reached end of file or end of all the records. Fine. So this way you can scroll through all of them. But this time, if I use prior, now I want to go back to the last record. So if I'm trying to use prior here instead of next, I'm going to get an error. Prior cannot be used because the type of cursor you are using is forward only. You can only scroll through the next records. You cannot go to the back records. If you want to go back or if you want to use prior, instead of forward only, what you could have used? You could have used the word scroll. Then if you would have used scroll, then you were eligible to use prior. Okay. Next, prior, relative, first, and last. These are the attributes of a scrollable cursor. Okay. Next and prior are quite obvious. If you want to go to the next record, use next. If you want to go to the previous record, you use prior. First and last, it goes without saying. Relative 3. This is something that we should check. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first close and deallocate cursor C1, close C1 and deallocate C1. Okay, and then I'm going to use one cursor which is a scrollable cursor. So scroll, I have to explicitly mention scroll, right? Okay, so I have declared a cursor C2 for getting data of employee table, and it is a scrollable cursor, so I can use next, prior, etc., etc. Execute. Fine. And now I'm going to fetch in different ways. One by one, let us see the behavior of this C2. When I'm saying fetch next, it is going to go to the first record. Okay. Or maybe I'll say fetch one more time. So it will go to Alan's record, which is the second record of the active set. What will happen if I say prior? Current records, previous record. It is going to fetch prior, that is Smith's record. Then if I want to go to the last one, fetch last from cursor name, which is Miller's record. Okay. Then fetch first from the active set, which is Smith record. Okay, so maybe let us consider a scenario that right now I am on the last record of the active set, and then I say relative 3. This number can change. I can say relative 4, relative 1, etc. Okay, so fetch relative 3 from C2. So now exactly what happens when I do this? Or maybe I am on the first line or on the first record, and now I say fetch relative 3. Did you get the difference of it?
Hmm.
Relative 3 is the third record, which is right now I was on the first record, that is I was on Smith record, and then it gave me the record of Jones. So after Smith, 1, 2, 3. That is the record of Jones, relative third record. But if I am on the last record and if I say relative 3, it does not come to any record. Okay. So relativity is from the current record, which row you want, that you can mention by giving a relative and number there. Okay. Now we are going to talk about how we can use these cursors along with variables. Till now we just used it to see the behavior of a cursor. Okay, we did not use it through a variable. Now we are going to declare a cursor. We are going to declare variables, and whatever data the cursor is giving me, we are going to store them in a variable and use it. That is actually the use of cursor. Okay, so the next important step of a cursor, or you can say the actual use of a cursor, is storing values or data, we can say values of cursor in variables. Okay, I close cursor C2. Okay, done. Now let us have a look at this demo. There is a cursor called as C9. Okay, so I have declared a cursor C9, and what kind of cursor it is? Is it scrollable cursor or forward only cursor? I'm saying declare cursor for select ename from employee. So I want to fetch, or I want to scroll through all the names of employee table. I don't want select star. So when I'm saying declare C9 for, so what kind of cursor it becomes?
Forward.
Yes, it's a default behavior. It's a forward only cursor, right? So when it is a forward only cursor, which is the only attribute that is available? Next. Okay, fine. So I have declared a cursor here, and what is the active set? The active set is only name column of employee table, no other columns. Now, along with cursor, I have also declared something else, which is what? A local variable or a scalar variable. The name of that variable is @str, okay, which is character type of variable. So after declaring one variable and one cursor, I open the cursor, and then I am fetch next from C9 into variable str. So whatever value cursor has, that value will now be stored in str, and then I am printing the value of str. Fine. So let us execute this once. First of all, I will declare and open the cursor. This much part we will do first. Done. Now I am going to fetch and then print at str. Okay, sorry. It is not knowing what is. I cannot again redefine the cursor if it is already open. So I'll execute this entire batch. What is it saying? Smith. That means it fetched only one first letter. See, this is a scalar variable. At a time, it can hold only one value, isn't it? Now, I want all the records all the names one by one, which needs to be stored in str. str cannot hold all 14 names one time one name. So what I need to do is I need to improve this code by using a loop for it. Before we use a loop, there is a while loop. You know that there is only one loop in SQL Server, which is while loop. Okay, so there are some global variables that are used along with cursors. What are those global variables? See, at the rate, fetch underscore status. Now, by default, its value is 0. Whenever you start fetching, okay, then the value changes. Let's say fetch first, fetch last, etc. etc. Fetch uh, fetch all. After fetching all, its value changes. It becomes -1. Okay, means what do you mean by that? It means that after it fetches all the values from the cursor, means after reaching the last record of a cursor, then there are no more records to be fetched, isn't it? So after there are no more records to be fetched, the value of at the rate status will become -1. So when it becomes -1, that means it is a representation that the cursor has reached the last record. Okay. So how you can use this variable? You can keep on scrolling till the value of this variable becomes -1. Are you understanding this concept?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So uh, this is a variable that's it's a built-in variable, that is a global variable, and it is at the rate fetch record. Okay, fetch status. So now see, fetch first. So I fetched first record and printed the variable's value. It is going to give 0. I fetched next 0. I fetched last, still it is going to print 0. After last record, if I am trying to fetch, now there are no more records to be fetched. So it is going to give me -1. Okay. So we are going to take help of this variable now. Just like fetch, there is one more variable which is called as cursor rows. Okay. Now, what is this cursor rows? By default, it is going to have 0 value. Okay. But whenever we scroll through cursors, it tells you that what or how many rows have been processed. So there is another global variable which is called as cursor rows. What does it gives you? It gives you count of row records. Count of records processed. Okay, so it is going to show how many rows have been fetched by the current cursor, right? So as you can see in this demo, I'm going to change this, close it. Okay. Hmm. There is a cursor called as C1, okay, which is a scrollable cursor. Now I'm going to open the cursor. Before opening the cursor, I want to check value of cursor rows, which is going to be 0. Then I'm going to open the cursor. The moment I open the cursor, then the value is going to be 14. Why 14? Because my active set, that is select star from employee, it holds 14 records. So the row count is 14. Getting my point? And then I'm going to close the cursor. The moment I close the cursor, then the cursor is not accessible to any of the fetch value, and that is why the global variable resets its value to 0. Okay, this is what the entire demo is all about. To check how many records are fetched, so first 0 before opening the cursor. Please have a look at this. First is before opening the cursor, then after the moment I open the cursor, the row count becomes 14, that is the cursor rows becomes 14, and when I close the cursor, that is after this step, when I close the cursor, then again the record count becomes 0, right? So it tells you how many rows processed. So the number of record count, it keeps on changing depending upon the fetch value. Okay. Now to scan through rows. See, till now when we were saying fetch, we could fetch only one value, but I want to fetch all the values through a loop. Fine. So I'm going to now execute this. Please have a look at this cursor. There is a cursor called as C4. It is a scrollable cursor. Okay. And what I'm having, the active set is, it is going to hold records, but not all records. It is going to hold only records of manager. So I'm going to just execute this query in some other session, maybe this session. So we will come to know what all are there are three. So the active set is consisting of three records. Okay, Jones, Blake, and Clark. So these are the employees who are managers, right? So these are this is my active set. So now what we are going to do is we are going to open the cursor. After opening the cursor, let us fetch the first record from C4. Till what time I should keep on fetching? I should keep on fetching till all the records are fetched. So who is going to tell me whether all the records are fetched or not? This global variable. Till its value becomes 0. Okay. So 0 value is going to be there till all the records are fetched. The moment it becomes -1, it will come out of the loop. And when it will become -1, -1 will be reached when you are fetching record after last record. Okay, till that time it is 0. So while this condition is true, keep on fetching records. Fetch next from C4. So inside while loop, I am putting fetch. Are you understanding this, Manan?
Yeah.
Why do we need while loop? Is if I do not give while loop, it is going to fetch only one row and stop. If there are 2000 rows I need to process, 2000 times I have to write fetch, 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 fetch like that. Instead of that, I will write fetch only once and put it inside loop. Okay. So see, it first printed John. That means it first fetched John, printed its data, then Blake, then Clark. Then it came to the last record. After last record, if I still try to fetch, the status of this variable now becomes -1. And then once it becomes -1, then it will come out of the loop. Okay. Now there are last concept, static and dynamic cursor. I'll take that and then we'll have 10 minutes break. There are two types or categories of function, that is static cursor and dynamic cursor. Static cursor means what? The cursor, see, it may happen that I am fetching data here and I am displaying data here, right? So I declared a cursor, I started fetching records and I am displaying those records. While I am displaying these records or while I am fetching these records, it may happen that in, let's say this was on 10 seconds, but while I'm doing that, somebody else changed the salary of Clark. That is, they made it 3,000. So I have not still finished the process of fetching, but somebody in between changed the active set. Some other user updated the record of Blake. So should that updation or should that be reflected in my cursor or it should not be reflected? Static cursors, they do not reflect the changes, whereas dynamic cursors, they do reflect the changes. Getting it? So how it is going, means I'll not practically do it now. I'll just tell you how it is going to work like. See, first of all, we are going to talk about static cursor. So static is a keyword. That means you display the old data, do not display the changed data, right? That is static cursor. I have declared a cursor C10, which is for the active set select star from employee. Then we open the cursor, right? We open the cursor. Meanwhile, what happened is somebody changed the salary to 3,000 for the record of Smith. Okay. So what is the earlier salary of Smith? It is 800, which now got changed to 3,000. Okay. What is the type of all cursor?
Static,
That means it is going to change or not going to change?
not going to change.
Not going to change, right? So now when I say fetch absolute 1 from C10, what salary it is going to show? It is going to show the salary which is 800. From where it is getting 800? 800 is in its mind, that is its active set is already holding salary 800. So it has got nothing to do with the latter changes, that is 3000 changes. Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
So whatever data that was there earlier in the active set, the same data it continues. So at the time of opening the cursor, what was the salary? The salary of Smith was 800. It continues with that salary. So even if the changes were made, those changes are not reflected. This is the behavior of static cursor. Whereas if I make it as dynamic cursor like this, declare C11, which is of what type? Dynamic cursor, and uh, select star from EMP is the active set for it. Now I'm saying open C11. Now when it opened the cursor, obviously the salary was 800. So here the initial salary is right now 800 for Smith, right? But after that it got changed to what value? It got changed to value 2000. Now if I say fetch first, it is going to show me salary 2000, and it is not going to show me this time the salary 800, because the active set is now dynamic. It can change according to the transactions that are happening, right? So this time, because my cursor is dynamic, it can show you the recent transactions value. So the active set can become dynamic, or it can be chosen as static, depending upon how you want the data to be. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to take a break here, and
Mhm.
I'm not going to end this meeting. I'll just pause it and mute it. Fine.
Okay. Yeah.
See, Manan, there is one update from my side that from today I'm going to have another commitment starting at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't be able to continue till 9 o'clock. I need some voice rest for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I will end our session either by 8:30 or somewhere between 8:30 to 8:45.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that whatever is the topic, accordingly I'll logically end it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
That's fine.
fine.
8:30 is fine actually. It is my pressure at my end is also high, so my work
Mm.
and this thing, and even I'm not keeping well. So for how many more sessions are needed?
See, it depends upon how we can stretch for. I mean, ideally 2 weeks.
Two. So this weekend and next weekend?
No.
Okay. Okay, got it. So maybe next
So
and next to
probably
next.
yeah, at in the end of August.
Mm-hmm. End of
Yes, yes.
August. Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so can you come back in 10 minutes?
I don't think so because I'm gonna have dinner and it's gonna at least take me 15 to 17 minutes.
So so should we continue? And then because then
And
by the time we come back, it will be almost 8:30.
yeah, it'll be 8:30. And if you have something lined up, then we may continue tomorrow. Tomorrow I won't.
No,
Oh
but
yes,
my
tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm saying, that from it's going to be a weekend training for me, just like Analyst data.
Mm-hmm.
So it is 10 to 1 actually.
Mm-hmm.
So it is going to be Saturday, Sunday like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, you would need a break, but not tomorrow. One urgent thing is coming up for me. I came to know today evening, and
that means you
let
are
me.
coming to tomorrow, right? Okay,
No,
so
I can't make it tomorrow. So
so that becomes very difficult. Last Sunday
I mean,
also we
I
couldn't
mean
do it.
at the I mean I would take on me. If you want to skip that topic and just share the notes with me, that's fine. But uh, unfortunately, this is something which I got stuck up and I have an urgent thing. I mean, although it's on a weekend taking out time, uh, yeah, I'm sorry about it, but so you can define whichever topic I'm not going to be able to complete during the class, and you are not going to be able to take up that during the class and teach. You can just share the notes with me.
Some less important topic I would keep that way
Yes,
because
yes.
right now it's all programming part that we are doing, right? So I
Hmm.
wanted to uh, discuss it with you.
Yes. So
Fine.
as much as you can, it's fine, but hopefully we would want to complete by August 10th.
Yes.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
will continue then. We will not take break.
Uh, I gotta go for dinner actually.
So what should we do then?
This is 10:30 right now, and when I came for क्लास मैं अपना
Mm-hmm.
सब्जी दूध और खाना का सामान लेके आया था तो मतलब ला के रखा था अभी आई विल जस्ट गो एंड हैव डिनर उससे पहले ऑफिस का काम कर रहा था
So will you be able to come back after 15 minutes?
I can come after 15-17 minutes then how much time uh,
Then
would
I'll
you
stretch till 8:45.
8:45 means 30 minutes.
Hmm. Let's see you come back, then we'll decide how much we can cover.
Okay, I'll come.
Okay, so this is 8 on
I'll
my
I'll
machine,
try
right?
to come. I'll try to come and let's see. Okay.
Okay, fine. Fine.